colleagues. They are trying to get a link. So there's two Barbaras.
Hello, everyone. We are going to start. Can you hear me well? Yeah? Okay. Welcome to this site
Sorry
title.
to interrupt you. There's two Barbaras waiting. I'm Barbara from Mexico. There is Talia and Daniela. They're trying to enter with my link.
Do we have interpretation?
No,
Come on.
maybe online. So
Hi.
this is on
Sorry to interrupt.
some people online. So some of the panelists will be joining online, but please, if you can online mute your microphones, Yannick will do it anyway. If not, so we have like a more order intervention here. So as I was saying, welcome to this side event, which is titled Enhancing National Monitoring Systems, Lessons Learned, Challenges, and Success Stories. My name is Gabriela Franco. I'm the project manager of the National Monitoring Support Initiative led by UNEP-WCMC in collaboration with countries and regional organizations in different areas. So as I say, because we have some people online, I will do some quickly some housekeeping for the people online so they know that they have a chat and a QA section when they can raise questions as well, and we can make it here as well. So with that said, I want to give you a bit of introduction to this side event. So through this initiative, I say we are working with different countries and regions to strengthen national biodiversity monitoring system and try to contribute to the implementation of the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. And we are doing so by looking at initially what there is at a country level, assessing existence capacities to monitor, identifying the priorities, priority actions and indicators for the countries, trying to as well to mobilize support from initiatives for experts that can support countries in order to scope on their monitoring systems, and then trying to build in capacity. So each of the countries and the region that are also working with certain countries, each of them have their own project to try to improve their system. And in the past months, they have been in the process of trying to assessing the existing capacity and prioritizing indicators that could help them improve their monitoring system. So today we want to give them the opportunity to share that experience. There have been different approaches to conduct this process. So I think it's very enrichful to share that with you. We will have as well, hopefully, some interactions. So other parties, or stakeholders here can also ask about that process. And then as well, we invited some indicator custodian to reflect on how the indicators are being used or could be implemented at the national level. And we want to allow some discussion. So the partners here and other actors in the room can also make them questions about really how you implement this at a national level. So before handing the floor to Melissa, I also wanted to thank the International Climate Initiative of the German Federal Ministry for the Environment, Climate Action, Nature Conservation, and Nuclear Safety for their financial support, which has and will allow all this work to happen. So now I will hand it over to you, Melissa, to continue moderating in this session.
Brilliant. Thank you all so much. Can everybody hear me? Wonderful, thank you. So my name's Melissa de Kock. I'm the Deputy Director here at UNEP-WCMC, and I will be facilitating this dialogue, which we really hope is a dialogue. So initially, party representatives will present their experiences of their efforts to develop or strengthen national monitoring systems for the KMGBF. Time allowing, I would very much like to draw on the experiences of other parties in the room to then tell us how they are working on their monitoring systems. Following this, I will ask certain indicator custodians to respond on how they are or can support the parties in their monitoring efforts. So to get us started, I'd like to welcome, and bearing in mind that some of our presenters are in fact online, we have Alia Ramos and Daniela Melgarego from Conabio, who I believe are online. We have Ruliana Susanti, National Research and Innovation Agency from Indonesia over here. Farai Tererai from Sanbi, also over here. Maria Cecilia from Humboldt Institute, who is online. And Lizeth Quiroga over there. Thank you very much. And then, of course, Yao Owuso, my apologies, from Conservation Alliance International, who's working with the Ghana government over here. So thank you very much for joining us, all of you. First of all, I'm going to ask each of you in turn to please reflect on the process you have followed to identify what you will focus on in your monitoring work. For example, in terms of assessing capacity to monitor NBSAPs or selecting and prioritizing indicators to strengthen your monitoring systems. And what do you see as the core components of an effective monitoring system? So first of all, I'm going to ask Mexico to go first, who I understand has a presentation. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very glad to be here. My name is Alia, and Daniela is also here with us. Today, I would like to share Mexico's experience strengthening our national biodiversity monitoring system. Next, please. Our presentation responds to question 3, focusing on how indicators were selected and how we are approaching their prioritization. In Mexico, the selection of indicators was based on 3 main criteria. First, their alignment in the NBSAP and the national targets. Second, their technical feasibility. And third, the ability to produce indicators using existing human and financial resources. Technical feasibility was assessed in 2 stages. The first took place during the preparation of the 7th National Report in 2025. During this process, 112 headlines and national indicators were reviewed to identify those for which data were available. This work relies on collaboration with different government institutions, and as a result, 82 indicators were included in the national report. The second stage was carried out this year under the National Monitoring Support Initiative, using an adaptation of the WCMC capacity assessment tool for the Mexican context. We assessed the capacity of the 82 reported indicators, in addition with the headline indicators that we are not reported, for a total of 100. This assessment considered data availability, data accessibility, and data update frequency. Another aspect we assessed was institutional coordination, specifically whether coordination mechanisms exist among the institutions responsible for producing each indicator. Unlike the data criteria, coordination can be strengthened. So while data gaps may limit an indicator, coordination gaps can be addressed through stronger collaboration. Next, please. Our next step is to prioritize the indicators based on 3 elements. First, the results of the capacity assessment. Second, their relevance for the national biodiversity strategy. And third, whether they directly measures biodiversity represents the enabling conditions needed to maintain it. Indicators will be selected and prioritized through interinstitutional coordination mechanisms involving federal government institutions and, where appropriate, researchers. This process will also help identify the technical capacities needed for long-term monitoring. Finally, we are planning a national technical workshop to complete the prioritization. Next, please. And to conclude, here is my contact information. Please feel free to contact us. And thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Alia. I will be inviting questions after all of the parties have spoken, so do hold your questions for them. The next person we have up is Riliana Susanti from Indonesia. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Is my voice clear? Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I will start my presentations representing our Indonesians, our national focal point. So I come from the National Research and Innovation Agency, the national focal point for the SBSTTA. So we have a national focal point for the CBD, who will coordinate all the work regarding the reporting and then monitoring in Indonesia. I will divide the presentations into 3 parts. First is where we start. And then second is what we are doing and where we are heading. So our starting point was alignment. We deliberately anchor the global framework in national conditions, and then we align the framework goals and target into Indonesian priorities and context, translating them into 20 national biodiversity target, making the global framework nationally relevant and actionable. Just as importantly, we mainstream biodiversity into national development planning. So the monitoring is not a standalone exercise, but is connected to how the country plans, and it includes the budgetary. None of this work without peoples, without stakeholder. We build strong institutional collaboration across ministry and agency, local governments, non-state actor, even youth, women's, in developing our 7 national report. So we engage with more than 500 stakeholders. That is inclusive effort that become one of our first best practice in Indonesia, because it is very difficult to engage in large number of people, but at this time we are able to do that. And move to the circle, to what we are doing. If you see from the top to the right, that is the second phase of our operationalization KMGBF, turning the framework monitoring template into a working national system. We do this indicator by indicator to a clear step-by-step processes. For each headline indicator, we review it in depth, and we try to harmonize the global methodology with our national system, including through what the data that was available in Indonesia. We assess the data that exists and it's the quality of the data, and we identify the data custodian and clarify who is responsible for what. When we then strengthen the technical capacity through targeted training and mentoring, and strengthen institutional coordination and data sharing. This is the process that we still doing it until now. When the data is missing, we identify the gaps and develop recommendations. What should we do on that matter? And importantly, we do not stop at the data. We analyze and interpret it to highlight strategic priorities, and we validate and refine our approaches. All of this feed one central product is the National Biodiversity Monitoring Dashboard and Decision Support System. The entire process is co-created with data custodian, technical expert, and development partner using existing data system and knowledge rather than building from the scratch. So we try to use what available that we have in Indonesia. That collaborative is our second best practices. And moving to the third part, where we are heading. We are looking ahead. Our direction is integrations. We are connecting biodiversity information through Indonesian clearinghouse mechanism and other platform. So data is no longer silos. We are improving data interoperability through common standard and metadata, enabling interoperable community-based monitoring, including the citizen science. This gives us stronger evidence for decision, supporting planning, implementations, and capacity building. It underpins science-based and inclusive governance, and it enables more transparent national and global reporting. In short, we are moving from fragmented data toward an integrated system that serves decisions, not just reports. So it's not a short time process. It is the process that we are still doing it. We are still making capacity building. We are contacting several global experts to give a training to Indonesian scientists and also to experts so that we can develop more integrated methodology that can be used in Indonesia for a long term. Harmonizing global methodology with national system is not a trivial. Our data is spread across many institutions and sectors. Different data sets have different level of readiness and availability. Some complex indicators demand technical capacity that we are still building. And sustainable financing for long-term monitoring remains a real constraint. We share this openly because the best practices are more useful when the difficulties are named, not like we hidden it. So to conclude, Indonesia's approach rests in three pillars: align with national context, operationalize collaboratively, and integrate toward decisions. This is not the finished models, but a work in progress that we are glad to share and to keep learning from others together. I think that is for my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Juliana. That was very interesting. Thank you. And now over to Farai Terai from South Africa.
Yeah, thanks very much, Melissa, and good afternoon, colleagues. I'll start off responding to what are the core components of a good or an effective national monitoring system. So, did I hear someone say something? Okay.
No, go ahead.
So there are a couple of points that I'm going to put forward. So the first one is really around clearly defined responsibilities through the whole value chain, that is from monitoring, indicator production, assessment, review, approval, and reporting. That is the first point. The second point is around agreed definitions of indicators, methods, and protocols that will allow the results to be produced consistently and to be reproduced over time. So very clear workflows. A third point is around awareness of input data needs and coordinated efforts to collect appropriate data. The fourth point is around intergovernmental cooperation, and I heard from the two presentations from Mexico and Indonesia, those very similar points are coming out. So it's very important to have very strong intergovernmental cooperation to ensure that integration and assessment of outputs. The fifth point is around a coordinated national reference system. And this is for collecting approved indicator outputs, methodologies, metadata, supporting evidence in a format that supports credible national reports. And the last point, and probably one of the most important, is around sustained institutional, technical, and financial capacity to maintain indicator production between reporting cycles. So I want to pause there This is just around the core components of a good monitoring system.
That's very useful. Thank you so much, Farai. As I mentioned, we're going to have a bit of a dialogue shortly, so do hold your questions. I'd then like to hand over to Maria Cecilia and Lizeth Quiroga, who are going to talk about the Colombia experience.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon there, and very early morning to my colleagues in Mexico also. So I would like to share my screen. Can I do that? Hopefully, are you seeing my screen with the presentation?
It's coming shortly. There we go. We can see it now.
And now, can you see it big? Great. Are you seeing my presentation?
Yes.
Yes, it's visible.
Yes.
Yes, you
Okay,
can go.
great. I see the people very small there in the room, so I cannot see if you're saying something. Okay, so thank you. Well, Colombia, as you might know, have identified a very large set of indicators in the NBSAP that was launched in COP16. So we already have all the headline indicators, of course, and a list of national indicators that have been prioritized. What we did following from the NBSAP was to have this approach for this project to relate those indicators to the red list ecosystem process. We believe that when we were thinking in updating the red list of ecosystems, there are many indicators and variables that you were using other indicators that were going to be needed for the red list of ecosystems update. So what we did, and here apologies, it's in Spanish, but we have the 5 criteria of the red list of ecosystems, and we have related to those the indicators with the national map, the national indicators, and with the logo of the CBD, the headline indicators that might be useful for the computation of the red list of ecosystems if we have them ready or if they were available. So what we did was to have like this alignment between those, and then we had a workshop with the research institutions that are vinculated to the Ministry of Environment and with the Ministry of Environment and the National Departments of Statistics. And what we did was go through of basically 5 questions, and we rate the process that have been taken during this year with these indicators and evaluate which rank the highest of all those that align to the red list of ecosystems. So we had 5 questions, a very basic one, but important to the maintenance and production of those indicators. So the first one was if your institution is included in the institutional framework for this indicator. Okay, so I have to say here that in the NBSAP, what we did is that for each of the headline indicators, we had a institutional framework for computing or reporting that indicator. So for each indicator, we have a list of institutions that were in charge of either producing the data or integrating the data or analyzing the data, validating it, and reporting it. So that we have for most of the headline indicators. And based on that, we asked them 1 year after the NBSAP was produced, if in the current years they were going to have or they had plans of activities related to computing those indicators. Then we asked them if there was an institutional commitment and staff available for methodological development and validation of the indicators. That was the other question. Then if the organization produced the data required to calculate the indicator in a regular basis. Then if the institution produced the indicator was committed to produce that data for other cycles of updating the indicators, apologies. And then if those indicators were useful also for other priorities of policy in the country. So after that, we selected one or several indicators for each of the red list of ecosystems criterias. So basically for criteria A, that is a reduction of distribution of the ecosystem, we have the following indicator, the extension of freshwater ecosystems, that is a national indicator that has been prioritized, and the representativeness of those freshwater ecosystems in protected areas. And we have the extent of natural ecosystem as an indicator for both criteria A and criteria B, that is restricted distribution of the ecosystem. Then for the criteria C and D that are related to biotic degradation and abiotic degradation, we focus on those indicators that were related to the ecosystem services provided, and one of those is hydrological regulation for the abiotic component and pollination for the biotic criteria. We also established two indicators, the rate of invasive alien species and the red list index, for also related it to the biotic disruption of the ecosystem. And then we thought that the BERI, that is Bioclimatic Ecosystem Resilience Index, could be a good approach for criteria E, which is a quantitative analysis of collapse of ecosystems. And I'm hoping Emily is there in the room, because that one is the most difficult criteria for understanding. So that is what we have been progressing, and these are the indicators we're going to work on with within this project of enhancing the national monitoring system. And I pass the microphone to my colleague Liz Seth, who is there in the room with you.
Thank you. To conclude from Colombia experience with the biodiversity plan and the 7th national report, an effective national monitoring system requires 6 core components. First, a clear governance arrangement, define roles for data provides. Second, a common monitoring framework, national targets linked to headline component and national indicator with agreed baselines, methodologies, reporting frequency, and quality standards. Third, interoperable information systems, environmental, sectoral, socioeconomic, financial, and geospatial data must flow through a shared architecture rather than in disconnect platform. For a strong national and subnational coordination. 5 points include participatory monitoring, community-based monitoring, indigenous and local knowledge, academia, civil society, and private sector information should complement official statistics. And the last point is the related capacity and finance, stable technical teams, long-term and institutional memory. Colombia has more important progress. However, major gaps remain. Monitoring still focus more on activities and institutional management that one biodiversity outcomes and inputs.
Thank you so much to Lizeth and to Maria. And Maria, just to confirm that Emily is in fact in the room and will be addressing some of your questions. Before we continue, I just want to let everybody know that this session is being recorded, and somebody is handing around a piece of paper to note your names down so we can share the recording with you later. And with that, I would like to go to our last party representative, who is Yor from Ghana. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. I think we need patience because I'm going to go through about 50 slides And if you don't have patience, you
Mm.
don't.
And having said that, I would like to remind everybody that we have between 4 to 5 minutes
Sure. Thank
for
you
those
very
50
much.
slides.
Thank you. Let me quickly say that the process that we followed in Ghana was informed by the challenges that we had when we were developing the 7 national report. So our process is quite unique from the others because of our own peculiar problems. Let's go to the first slide. Good. So this is the process that we followed. And I must say that the role that the government, the ministry played was significant. Without the ministry's contribution, we wouldn't have gotten to this far. So the first for us is that if you want to go through any of this process of monitoring, you must get the buy-in of the ministry and the government agency. So the first one was to make sure that we align all the indicators, be the Global Biodiversity Framework indicators and the national indicators as captured in the NBSAP. That's the first thing we did. Now, after we have aligned this, then we did mapping of all the potential stakeholders. And it's important to note that we were concerned also about the whole of society approach. So what we did was, first of all, we identified all the stakeholders within the government space. And that was easy to do because they already exist. You can easily locate them. The difficulty was the stakeholders who are outside the government space. And these we are talking about the NGOs, academia, and then sometimes research institutions, the private sector, the traditional authorities, the communities, the youth groups, and other identifiable groups, particularly community resource management areas group. These are very important because they are the custodians of the resource within those communities. So we needed to touch base with all of these groups. Then the next was to conduct meetings across board. And the first was to launch the program. And to be able to launch the program, we divided the country into 3 belts: the southern belt, the middle belt, and the northern belt. So all these processes run through the entire country. Now we did the first of the series of meetings with participants or stakeholders within the southern belt. And they provided us all the information that we needed. Then we went to the middle belt, where we also launched the project and touched base with all the stakeholders who were there. Then we did the same in the northern belt. Now, after we have done that, then we had workshops to capture the capacity needs of these individual stakeholders. Again, was much easier with government. And let me say that, unlike in the past, the experience that we had with the writing of the NBs on the 7 national report, where we gave them the flexibility to provide us the information online. This time around, because we failed this time around, we say, no, you sit in the room and provide us all the information. If you don't have the information, get in touch with your ministry and then bring the information. So when we had the workshop, we had all the information that we needed at a go. Then we got to the other stakeholders, the traditional leaders. And that's where the difficulty was, because their focus and their indicators were centered around the resources which provide them their livelihood. So for the Krima, they are interested, for example, in the mushrooms they get, in the snails they get, and not about climate change. So each one of the groups were interested in indicators that directly informed their survival. So if they are getting low in fish catch, for example, then they know there's something wrong with the health of the streams. For those in the coastal areas, they have seen over the years that there's a low fish catch. And so they know that the sea is not well suited in terms of its ecological health. So from there, after we've gotten all the information, then we came back and then completed the template and got a picture of where we are. And as a matter of fact, the capacity needs were across all the government institutions. Then after that, we sat down with the same group to categorize the indicators. According to low means that you will not need a lot of resources, medium resources, and high. Those that were high were also recognized, because at the end of the day, we want to be able to address all these indicators at a cost which is much lower, and at the same time, we wanted to ensure that the data is already available. The next step was to prioritize, and then we prioritize the indicators with all the stakeholders, both the government agencies and the traditional authorities and the community members and other identifiable groups. And as I've already indicated, it was much easier with them because they were not concerned about a number of indicators. They were particularly concerned about 1 or 2 indicators, particularly target 3. They didn't mind about spatial planning and all that. They were indicated in things that affect their own livelihoods. And then we're going through consensus building through technical working group deliberation and stakeholder feedback to be able to finally prioritize the indicators that we'll be using. Next slide, please. So again, significant gaps exist in capacity across all the agencies. And we have captured that. It's very beautiful. We're able to know that areas where we can bring in experts to support us. And then we have also problem with technical infrastructure. Almost all the state agencies are doing monitoring, and they all have individual repositories. So sometimes you don't have the information, the data from them. And again, the methodologies, we realize that they were not standardized. So then you are getting data which you think that it doesn't speak to what you are looking for. So that's one of the issues. And the long-term financing. Some of the data that we have are old because they don't have the resources to be able to update them. And data management across biodiversity reporting institutions. These are all issues, challenges that undermine robust monitoring, and we are looking at them to address them. The key lessons that we learned is that indicators with available data, monitoring systems that are already operational, and sustainable financial resources will always prioritize. If you have all these there, then you don't need to invent the wheel. We only need to strengthen those agencies to do more of the prioritization and then, collection of the data so that us to be able to provide us with data. Again, and for me, one of the most important is working with the ministry. Once you get the ministry's buy-in, that's it. And they made the work easier for us, bringing all the state agencies together. And so if you're doing something similar and then you don't have the government buy-in, I'm telling you, we're not going to make the progress. And I've also talked about the local communities. They prioritize indicators that monitor biodiversity, on which their sustenance depend, like the NTFPs, fish stocks, OECM totems. So when they find that they have totems for all the traditional areas, some of them are crows, vultures. And so when they find that the vultures are not there, then they know there's something wrong with the ecological health of the ecosystem. Then they go in to find out ways to improve the health. So it was surprising that they came up with all this as a way of maintaining the whole of society approach. And the recommendation, international collaboration is key to assess technical, technological, and sustainable financial support. When we're developing the 7 national report, UNEP was supposed to provide some information, data. Anytime we go there, there was no data. International collaboration. This time around, I'm sure we'll get it. And then finally, we need to strengthen, maintain agreements with all stakeholders. We need to have a relationship. If you want the data, it mustn't start from today. You need to have constant relationship with them. So to the 50th slide now.
Yo, thank you so much. That was very interesting. Thank you. So that brings us to the end of the formal panelists from the party side. And what I've picked up is that while it's very context, oh, sorry, Farai.
Can I say just a little bit on the South African experience in terms of aligning our monitoring systems to the GBF and a little bit on the prioritization process? There's clearly a memo that I missed.
May I, you may, but may I ask you to limit it to a few minutes in the interests of running back to the contact groups this afternoon?
Of course.
Thank
yeah.
you.
So just a quick one. I realized that, there's a bit that I missed from the briefing. So just in terms of the alignment, and I'm going to simply focus on the indicators where we found it easy to report on and the ones that were particularly difficult. And I'm going to focus on just what are the elements of that. Now, we found indicators that were relatively straightforward to be those that we're already computing for our national reporting, or we're already computing those for our reporting in our reporting mandate to other MEAs. The second point is that we found those indicators where we had supported mature national assessment processes, particularly through our national biodiversity assessment, long-term data sets, and identified custodians. Those were relatively easy. The more difficult ones are the newly proposed indicators, particularly indicators in this targets 14 to 23. Those were particularly difficult because they require much more intense intergovernmental cooperation across our departments. And then it is yet again around indicators without clearly defined computation approaches and custodians and well-established data sources. And the last point, the last bit I really want to speak to is around, when we conducted, this is around prioritization. Now, we first and foremost conducted our gap analysis. And we found that the challenges were in three categories. The first category was around institutional ownership. Now, where there was a lack of ownership, where there was a lack of institutional custodianship, it was extremely difficult to find that data. Lack of awareness of the need for those indicators to be computed. And this is particularly for government departments that aren't really traditionally within the biodiversity monitoring and reporting space. Then the second category is around input data sources. So input data not being collected on a regular basis to detect trends. So that was the first challenge. The second one was around input data is fragmented across multiple data systems. I think I've heard that coming out as well from others, and data managed by other institutions that do not necessarily, that we haven't established collaborations with. Input data that is spatially or taxonomically incomplete or biased. That was another challenge within the category of input data. Then input data not in the appropriate format to support indicator calculations. The last category is that of methodological development. Now, method for computation has not yet been established and is still under development. That's there we found that as a constraint. Then the indicator is computed for national reporting, but methods are not aligned fully to the GBF. So those are the challenges. Now, once those challenges were identified, we then brought all the stakeholders into the room and presented and explained these challenges. After that, then developed a framework for prioritizing indicators. Now, that framework is what we are currently using to then identify those indicators. Once the indicators are prioritized, then we go back to the stakeholders. Very important for us in our experience. The intention is to make sure those that are supposed to be custodians in terms of collecting that data and computing those indicators, of course, with support from us in terms of workflows and so on, they should be involved in that prioritization process, and we establish ownership from the beginning. Pause.
Many thanks, Farai. Thank you very much. That has taken us a little over time, but I think it was a very important intervention, and I appreciate that. And what I've, from listening to all of these very helpful presentations, what I've picked up is that the process needs to be context specific. Everything needs to be context specific, but there are very similar challenges that you're facing and very similar core components. So some of the challenges seem to be around distribution of data between different agencies, ownership of the process in different agencies, and also the translation of methodologies from the global level to the local level. And some of the common core components is very much about the inter-institutional coordination and the stakeholder engagement. And that's been very interesting to come out of this, despite your very varied experiences. In the interests of time, I'm actually going to ask the custodian agencies to come in and reflect on what you've said. And with that, I'd like to introduce the agencies that the indicator custodian agencies with us today. So online, we have Katja Karusakis from the OECD, Emily Nicholson from IUCN, who will focus on the headline indicator A1 for the Red List of Ecosystems, Danny Ghaffari to my left from UNEP, headline indicator 7.1, and Jasmine Upton from UNEP-WCMC for indicator 3.1. So in just a few minutes, could you each please reflect on the work you're doing to support parties in their efforts? For example, what methodologies, guidance, tools, or resources are available? What opportunities exist for strengthening national capacities? The technical capacity has been identified as a bit of a challenge. And are there any commonalities in what you've heard today, both in terms of the challenges, but also in the opportunities? And how are you working with the parties to address this? With that, I'm going to hand over to Katja, who's online.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
I'm going to try and share my screen with the presentation. Can you see it?
Not yet, it's coming. There we go, we've got it.
Okay, lovely. So thank you so much to the organizers and UNEP-WCMC for the invitation to present. I'm going to highlight some tools that we have at the OECD that relate to target 18 and 19 for monitoring towards those targets. So first of all, in the context of target 18, to track progress on scaling up positive incentives for biodiversity. At the OECD, we release an update called Tracking Economic Instruments and Finance for Biodiversity roughly every 2 years. It draws on the data we have in our OECD Policy Instruments for Environment database, so the PINE database, which we've been collecting data from governments since before 1980. On environmentally relevant economic incentives. And here what you see is the data that's collected up until 2024. So this was from our previous update. You see the trends in biodiversity positive incentives, covering biodiversity relevant taxes, biodiversity relevant fees, tradable permits, biodiversity offset programs, the biodiversity positive subsidies, as well as payments for ecosystem services by number of incentives across countries and also by the number of countries with these instruments. We'll be updating this in the next few weeks, but in any case prior to COP17. So our next update will be forthcoming shortly. But just to highlight that currently more than 150 countries report to the PINE database, and we track these instruments which are relevant for the positive incentives for Target 18, and all countries are welcome to present. The data is consistent and comparable across countries. And of course, we want to reach 196 countries that are providing data to the OECD. So please don't hesitate to get in touch if you'd like to contribute to the data. So that's on the positive incentives. I will say we also track the finance that these incentives mobilize. So for example, biodiversity relevant taxes in OECD countries have mobilized in 2024 more than $10 billion a year. And we'll see what the 2026 data shows in a few weeks. In terms of the harmful incentives and subsidies for biodiversity, turning to work from our colleagues in the fisheries team, They developed a framework 2 years ago now to look at, because they collect data on government support to fisheries. Data is collected for, if I recall, around 40 to 50 countries from around the world, which covers nearly 80% of total fisheries value added. So, the predominant fisheries market around the world. And they developed a framework looking at the type of policy support. So you have here on the left, whether it's for vessel construction and purchase, vessel modernization, whether it's for fuel, etc., and moving down on the left to other different types of government support to fisheries, and identified which ones are considered high risk in terms of encouraging unsustainable fishing, moderate risk, uncertain risk, and no risk, all depending on the policy context as well. And based on the data that's collected in the Fishery Support Estimate database, then you can see how the trends evolve over time. So this figure here covers all the 41 countries and territories that are currently providing data to the OECD. It covers OECD and non-OECD countries. And you see here both, across all countries. But if you look at the OECD Review of Fisheries 2025 report, you also have the data by country, again, and over time. So, and the data is all publicly available on the OECD websites. For all the data we have, it's all publicly available. So some countries, for example, have used this data, including the high risk or moderate risk, to report to the CBD in the context of harmful incentives. And of course, if you are providing data to the OECD, you're, again, most welcome to provide data if you're not already. But this can also provide a sort of a proxy for the fraction of government support to fisheries that is considered high risk or moderate risk, as you prefer to report.
Sorry, Katja,
yes.
in the interest of time, we just...
Yeah, I'll be super quick. I have 2 more slides.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm so sorry. So we also have data that's provided on agriculture government support, with the latest report on assessing the impacts of agriculture support policies on the environment. So countries can extract data from there to see what is considered potentially environmentally harmful. And finally, the OECD, with regard to Target 18, also collects data on international sort of development finance. And here you see the latest preliminary trends in international public finance for biodiversity, according to 2 different methodologies, but it's the lower one that is the biodiversity specific and most relevant to reporting to the CBD. So I'll stop here. And again, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Katja. Much appreciated. Thank you so much. I'd like to hand over now to Emily Nicholson, who I hope will be able to address some of the issues that Maria raised today.
I might catch up with Maria another time on that. So my name's Emily Nicholson. I'm from the University of Melbourne in Australia, and I co-lead the Red List of Ecosystems thematic group in AECN's Commission on Ecosystem Management. I also co-chair the hashtag on the Global Report on Progress. I think I've taken up my time just with my committee. We're one of the custodian for the metadata for the Red List of Ecosystems, headline indicator A1. This is a new indicator for global reporting, first published in 2020, but building on science that was being developed over the last sort of 15 years. As a result of this, we had about 27 countries included in their national reports. And when I say about, part of the challenge was that the reporting people grappled with the reporting template, and I'll come back to this. But another 20 to 30 countries reported that their Red List of Ecosystems assessments are underway or committed to doing it by their 8th national report, which is really exciting. Some of the real barriers that were reported that were common, which we've heard I think, today, was the first one was just the fundamental foundational data that you need to report on this indicator. So at a very base level, a national ecosystem map was lacking for most countries. Then also information on integrity or degradation of ecosystems. And then finally, red lists of ecosystems assessments. South Africa was an outlier in that, having already done it 3 or 4 times, and then working with the region. So this region, or Southern Africa, was very strong for this indicator. The second thing was just countries reported that they struggled with the methods and didn't have the capacity to do their red list assessments and report on the indicator. And then the third challenge was really, I think, this grappling with this new monitoring framework, the online reporting tool, how the indicators are calculated from underlying data. And so we had countries who had a red list of ecosystems assessment not report the index, but just show the map in their report, for example, from which we were able to infer that they were happy with it. They would have reported if they'd known how, and then we could use that information to compute the index for them and include that in the national report. Others have a national red list of ecosystems, but this speaks to the government issues of intragovernmental communication. Didn't use it in their reporting, didn't acknowledge it. So there was obviously a communication gap within governments as well. We also had data available that countries were unaware of, and tools and methods, in part because of the process of whether the metadata weren't updated from after the end of COP as new tools were developed. So we, for example, in the red list of ecosystems, compiled the reporting data needed by countries, but no one knew about it. So only about 3 or 4 countries use that. What are we doing as a group? We have guidelines. We have guidelines also for using the global ecosystem typology. We have online training. We provide in-person training or online meetings as well, both through ACN as a secretariat, but also through the Commission on Ecosystem Management and our collaborators around the world. And that's really shifting. A few years ago, we were doing in-person training from scratch. What is the red list of ecosystems? What are the criteria? But now it's really evolving to countries using all that other material and peer learning. And then they might just come to us for a meeting with a whole series of really good questions. So we had a great meeting with Malaysia a few weeks ago in exactly that sort of context. So I think it's the challenge of a relatively new indicator, and I think we'll get there. I'm optimistic. Yeah.
Thank you for that. And I'm sure there's going to be a number of people in the room here today who have questions for you on that. Thank you. I'd like to introduce Danny, please, to talk about headline indicator 7.1.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Danny Ghaffari. I work in the Office of Science. We are a custodian agency of SDG indicator 1411, Index of Coastal Eutrophication Potential, headline indicator 7.1. I'm just going to share with you my experience working with countries, what are the challenges in the monitoring system, data collection, etc. We are actually in the middle of a data drive for SDG 1411, 1421. The data will be used and reported under the headline indicator 7.1. We have, at national level, we have a coordination. In some countries, we have coordination issues. We identify, for example, from the national statistical officers, we identify focal points. And then when we send them an email with a questionnaire, they don't know whom to contact in order to compile and submit and resend back the questionnaire to us. So this is from the national side. From the international side, from the global side, we try to reduce also burden, because also we work very closely with regional Cs. Regional Cs also collect this data from countries. So for countries that report data to regional Cs, we don't contact them. We collect the data directly from regional Cs in order to save burden on countries. The tools available, we have already methodologies in place for this SDG indicator, Index of Coastal Eutrophication Potential. We have the metadata developed, the methodology, understanding the state of the ocean, 3 SDG indicator, 1411, 1421, and 1451. It's all available on sdgs.unep.org or on UN Stats. We also do some concepts note in order to submit for funding. in order to be able to support countries that require capacity building, etc. And now we started actually implementing a project in 3 countries in Africa for SDG 141171 headline indicator 711 is one of them. We receive also requests for assistance from countries just to explain how to compile, how to collect the data, institution working within the country in order to, to bring all together in order to be able to compile and report on this indicator. So in brief, I was listening to the countries, but I'm not sure how close you are working with the National Bureau of Statistics, the ones responsible for the development of methodologies, for the validation, verification of data. In Indonesia, we have One Data Indonesia, that also you can use existing infrastructure in order to publish data for biodiversity for the global biodiversity framework. So you can already benefit from existing infrastructure. So I was 2 years ago in Jakarta, and we had a workshop on environment statistics, and One Data Indonesia is the platform where you can host all your indicators. So, and it's you can also consult with BPS. They will help you in the development of methodologies, and other countries as well, like benefit from the same experience. So in brief, we have very little data on ICEP on nutrients. We are in the middle of collecting data. Hopefully this year, we broaden our scope. We are working now with networks. In Latin America and Caribbean, we are working with Remarco. Data exists in countries, but a lack of focal point or identification of focal points. So Remarco will help us in reporting for the data available in the 18 countries, in addition to the data collected through OSPAR, HELCOM, Mediterranean Action Plan, etc. So please feel free to contact me during and after, and we'll be happy in case you need any support for 7.1. Happy to provide support. Thank you. Back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Danny. And what I really appreciated about that is that where data exists through other systems, you draw on that rather than going back to the countries. And lastly, from our custodian agencies, I'd like to ask Jasmine Upton to talk about headline indicator 3.1. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I do. Yes, perfect. Hi, everyone. My name is Jasmine. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this session. I found it really interesting to hear about all of the work that goes in to developing a national monitoring system. And it's just, really impressive. And so it's been really, really, really interesting to be part of this. So I'm going to talk today about the work that we do at UNEP-WCMC to help calculate headline indicator 3.1. So I work on the Protected Planet Initiative at UNEP-WCMC, which is a product of UNEP and IUCN, but which UNEP-WCMC manages. So we collate data on the world's protected and conserved areas in a database called the World Database on Protected and Conserved Areas, or the WDPCA. So you may be familiar with it. It used to be called the WDPA. But what we do is we bring together information and data on the world's protected areas and OECMs, and we bring it all together into this platform that you can see on the right-hand side. And we calculate several indicators on different MAAs, but for KMGBF, we calculate the headline indicator 3.1, and this is underpinned by several CBD COP decisions. And we do this by working very closely with national governments across the world, and often working with multiple agencies and ministries. So as we've heard from many of the parties, there's often this issue with data being spread across different places. So we work with multiple ministries and agencies to collate data on protected areas and OECMs and bring it all together in one place. And what we do is then we also work very closely with several of the TSCCs, and some of whom are in the room today. And they provide a really important role in helping to facilitate data collection at the regional level, but also to provide technical capacity as well to countries on reporting. So that's a really important relationship for us. So we bring all of that data together in one place, and we calculate a headline indicator 3.1 and all of the indicators for target 3. So that includes the disaggregations of the headline indicator as well. But what we have been doing is adapting the initiative to be able to better capture information on the disaggregation. So, for example, we've recently adapted the platform to be able to capture information on the effectiveness of protected and conserved areas. So we know this is a really important part of Target 3. We know that there are challenges for countries in working out how to interpret and then report on this part of the Target 3. So we now have a database where you can report information on the management effectiveness of sites, how equitably they're being governed, and also conservation outcomes. So a lot of that site level monitoring that you are doing, you can actually now report into this database, and it can bring all of that data together in one place and help you to report on that disaggregation of the indicator. So yes, so we do that, and then that's really important, of course, in helping to make sure that all different elements of Target 3 are covered and are being addressed and reported on. And also, I think what's really critical is it helps to provide a standardized framework for reporting on Target 3. So, of course, all of the data that's in the database is made up on national data, but we bring it together and we calculate it in a standardized way, which we've heard come up quite a few times today. And we can provide pre-calculated standardized indicators that parties are very welcome to use if they would like to. So there is an option for indicator 3.1 when you're completing your national reports. You can actually bring the data from Protected Planet in through the online reporting tool. So should you wish to use these indicators, they are actually available for you to bring in through your online reporting tool. But we're also very happy to work directly with parties to help them calculate the indicators under 3.1, and also any other additional analyses that you might want to do with Target 3, we can provide support. So the final thing I will just quickly mention is, so we also publish a report series called the Protected Planet Report, which we publish every few years, and this report assesses all of the indicators under Target 3. So that includes the headline indicator, but also the disaggregations, the component and the complementary indicators under Target 3. And the idea is to really provide an assessment of progress on how we're doing towards Target 3. We published our most recent report in 2024, and we have our next one coming out in 2027. So it's going to be the last official assessment of progress on Target 3 before the 2030 targets, when we'll do our final report in line with the KMGBF and the 2030 targets coming to a close. So we have sent out a notification to all CBD focal points and focal points on protected and conserved areas. And we really encourage parties to be reporting accurate data, because in order to calculate the headline indicator and to bring all of this data together, it really relies on accurate reporting by parties. So we're available to support you to do that. And we can support parties in multiple ways. So I think one of the things that we hear coming up as an issue from parties is actually interpretation of some of the elements of Target 3, for example, OECMs. And so if any parties are looking for some training on sort of understanding and adapting some of these elements to their national context, then we can also help to do that. But yeah, please do get in touch if you would like any support. Thanks.
Super, thanks for that, Jazz. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to give an opportunity to the people sitting in the room and people sitting online. And what I'd like to do is, if there's any parties in the room who would like to reflect on what they've heard, either from other parties about the way they've prioritized and selected indicators, or on the core components, does any of that resonate, or in fact, have you had different experiences? So I'd first like to give the opportunity to any parties in the room or TSCCs, if you want to reflect on how you have been working on developing your monitoring systems. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, I'm Luisa from Brazil, from the Environmental Ministry. I will try to bring very quickly because of the time. But first, just to thank everybody, because it was very interesting to hear all the experiences from your countries. And I would also make a question if you can send us the presentation and the contact from the countries together with the, okay, thank you. So Brazil, we report 67 indicators, and our process, I think, was very similar to Mexico one, according to what I saw today. We look for all the indicators that were bringing by the framework, and we were a little bit analyzing the methodology proposed. And then we were also looking for national indicators and so on. And it was a very hard and big process analyzing so many indicators. And actually, sometimes it's a little bit a question for the ones that were presenting. We are having some difficulties in analyzing the methodology that were being proposed and our data that were available. Sometimes we have many data in Brazil, but we didn't have, especially because of capacities and technical difficulties. Sometimes it's difficult to make that data available according to that methodology and that indicator. So maybe if our supporters could give a light a little bit, because we report 67 indicators, but we are still in the process, as Indonesia said. Brazil and BSAP is going to be until 2050. And with some process in 30 and 40. And we believe we have still a long path to go through, making sure our indicators represent better our targets, and also making a way to get those data and making them reported. I remember at least 2 headline indicators that I'm sure we had the data, but we didn't have time and capacities enough to bring that data and into that methodology, make the calculations and so on. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your intervention. Danny, did I see you indicate that you could respond to that?
Yes, especially the last part actually about the data that is compiled. When the data is compiled not according to the global methodology, in the SDG context, I'll give you from experience, the data compiled according to a national methodology is welcome to be reported under SDG indicators. It will not be actually part of the aggregated data to regional and global, but it will be reported under national data, and we will use a flag D to tell that the data is compiled according to a different methodology than the global one. So you can, in the SDG context, the headline indicator, I am sure, because it's a national context, like if you are doing national assessment, it's a national data at the end. If it requires small calculation it's fine. If not, you can still report it in the case of SDGs, and we're going to use it under headline indicator 7.1. You can still report it, and we will flag that it was collected according to a different methodology. So just sharing my experience in the SDG context, but maybe other colleagues for the global biodiversity framework. Thank you.
Danny, thank you for that. Katja or Emily or Jazz, would you like to respond on that? No? Okay. Brazil, would you mind repeating your question? Katja didn't hear it online about the methodologies and making it relevant at the national level.
Yes, just first a quick reaction. We report mainly national indicators in our report because that's how we could get the data, and many in SGD as well. So my question was a little bit about what tips the countries and the supporters would give for the countries to make procedimental tips about the process between the indicators the global report are giving for the countries and compatibilizing them with national data. What would be the tips in terms, because we have a very big MBSAP in Brazil with 25 targets, so very ambitious targets, and how we could make that process in a way that maybe we should prioritize indicators, how we make that process in a way that is feasible for the countries.
Wonderful. Thank you, Brazil. Emily?
Yeah. Yesterday we had a side event on ecosystem-related headline indicators, and I was one of the people who spoke really, really persuasively in that session about how to start this process. And I think part of it was just starting pragmatically with what you have and the first steps, and knowing that you will iteratively improve it. There was a really fantastic report that Taka from SAMBI presented on from their TSCC on how they did a needs capacity, but sort of a prioritization of indicators and underlying data sets that you would need to develop the indicators. And I think they came out with that ecosystem maps as a really, really key one because it underpinned multiple indicators. And that's something that our analyses have shown as well. And there, again, Malawi gave a great example of they just made a start. The first map was not great. They knew that it wasn't great, but then they made another one and they focused on the areas that needed most improvement. I know that Brazil has some really great foundational ecosystem map data through IBGE and then change data, for example, with Mapiomas, is that? Yeah. And so there's a really good foundation there. I can understand completely that you wouldn't have had time since the monitoring framework was established to really get those indicators going. Really happy to chat more. We've got some of my team working in Brazil, so that would be great.
Excellent. Thank you, Emily. And Katja?
Thank you. So I would say from our perspective, where we have data relating to target 18 and 19, I will say that, I mean, the data we have is provided by governments, so it's considered officially reported data. My impression, I mean, this is just, an impression really. I would say that I'm not sure to what extent when governments were reporting for the global review that they went back to the metadata sheets to see the guidance that was there. We noticed, for example, on biodiversity positive incentives that a number of countries said they didn't have any data, but we know that there is data in the OECD policy instruments for environment database. And we have it we update it in our work on tracking economic instruments and finance for biodiversity. So maybe it's also a matter of sort of more communication at the domestic level, as it might be that the agriculture ministry is reporting data to the OECD PINE database, or the finance minister and maybe the environment ministries who were reporting to on their national reports didn't know about it. So that's just, as I said, an impression we got.
Thank you. That's very helpful, Katja. Just before we hand over for closing, I'd like to, I understand there are some questions in the room, either to the parties or the custodian agencies that haven't yet been asked. So if you do have any further questions, please do raise your hand either online or in the room. Sorry. Yes, please go ahead. Please introduce yourself and where you're from.
Thank you for the floor. I am Josephine Ilundu from Cameroon. CBD National Focal Point. I have just two questions. The first one is to know if the Biofuel initiative, what is the link with the work done by the OECD in tracking of economy incentive, and also because there are some countries who are supporting by Biofuel initiative, and if you have some data relating to track incentive and incentive issue, I don't know how we can link it, how this is feasible. And my second preoccupation is about the technical scientific centers. because in Central Africa, our TSCC is COMIFAC, and I know we were, I think at Roma, I approached WCMC about these challenges in terms of reporting on some indicators. They told us they are working through the TSCC. And now I think in Central Africa is a crucial issue, this problem of indicators. I don't know how capacity buildings will be done to improve the reporting based on the burden we discover in the reporting of the 7 national reports. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So for the first question, I'm going to ask Katya to respond, if that's okay, and then I'll turn to Natasha Ali from UNEP-WCMC for your second question. Over to you, Katya.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that question. With regard to the work that BioFin does, I'll say that in the context of positive incentives, we had reached out to BioFin a number of years ago, asking them if they had granular data on the positive incentives they've come across in the countries that they've been working with. And at that point in time, they said they did not have that level of granular data. So we weren't able to use data coming from there. However, I will say we very much welcome and encourage countries to report to us directly. The slides include my contact information. We can put you in touch with the team managing PINE. As I said, already 150 countries report to PINE, and so you're very welcome to report data to us on your positive incentives directly, as well as then on the other databases we have on government support to agriculture, fisheries. And I will also say, in the context of tracking finance for biodiversity, the OECD is like one of the partners collecting data together with Eurostat, OECD, and the IMF on COFOG, which tracks national biodiversity expenditure. It's the direct finance. And also through Eurostat, together with Eurostat, on the biodiversity finance expenditure, both public and private expenditure, through the classification of environmental purposes. So these provide harmonized ways to collect data so that they're consistent and comparable across countries. And COFOG is for all countries. It's global. The other method is more for currently OECD and EU countries and OECD countries, but there are revisions underway in the COFOG to be released in 2028 to align the two. So in our view, we think that in the future, there'll be a way to report on biodiversity finance through COFOG in a consistent and comparable way across countries.
Katya, thank you so much. Before I hand to Natasha for the second question, we are unfortunately out of time. People have to get back to the contact group. So what I'm going to ask is that anybody that still has questions, either to stay back if the question is for something that we can handle here, or once the participant list has been shared, to reach out to the relevant people. Thank you, Natasha.
Thanks, Melissa. Can you hear me well? Great, thank you. Hi, I'm Natasha Ali. I'm Head of Policy at UNEP-WCMC. So to the question specifically around COMIFAC's role in this project, at the moment, they are one of the partners in this project. And at the moment, we are in the process of working on their needs assessment, capacity needs assessment for the countries that they will support in the region. They're very early stage of this process, so I would suggest that it would be useful to speak with COMIFAC about the approach that they're taking and provide that feedback on what would be appropriate for Cameroon and the other countries in the region. Through this project, we are not, as you've probably seen from the work that's been presented here today, UNEP-WCMC are providing 15 million euros to each of the countries and parties that we're working.
Sorry, I just have to break in. Not 15 million euros to each of the countries and parties.
15 million euros among the countries and regional partners, some of which are the TSCs. to enhance their national monitoring systems. And as you've heard, there are very different approaches that are being taken by each of the countries. So I don't think it's possible to say what approach would be taken by COMIFAC necessarily. It would need to be guided by those national priorities. And as you've heard, there's been various different technical challenges along the way, and identifying those political challenges has also been a barrier that we're overcoming. What we're trying to do through these series of side events and the way that we're reaching out to parties and the way that we're providing opportunities for sharing information between parties and technical custodians is to create these dialogues, to have discussions between parties and technical. We've been convening these discussions for over 40 years with agencies that are developing indicators, and ourselves are working on ways that we can create these dialogues. So we would really welcome from all of you ideas on how we can do this better and to make sure that we are providing that service of convening the dialogues effectively. To that end, I will say, if anybody wants to hear more about the work that we're doing, or if the technical partners, if there are technical agencies in this room, would like to participate in the survey that we're running, what we're doing here is trying to get an idea of the support that is available to countries from technical agencies that we can share with them. So we've got these cards that technical agencies can come and take from me, and you can scan them, and then we're creating online resources and other types of resources. Opportunities for training in the region would be shared via our website. So for example, if there were trainings, if Emily's running training on the Red List of Ecosystems, we would make that available, and it was in the regions that you're working in, we would make that information available to all of you so that you're aware of the potential opportunities. And if there were online resources or webinars and trainings going on, again, we will make sure that that information is available to you. There is this piece of paper going around. We will stay here in the room afterwards to hear from anybody who wants to hear any more about what we're doing. But I would invite you to write to us. I think that, and we will share the presentations for those of you that provided your names. And then I would advise you to write to us at monitoring support at UNEP-WCMC.org if you'd like to receive further information. And I would also like to thank all of you for coming today, and enjoy the rest of the discussions here at SBSTA. Thank you.
So just to echo Natasha, thank you all very much for coming today. Thank you to our panelists for sharing your knowledge. And we look forward to engaging with all of you further on this work. Thank you so much.